and welcome to the Deep 3 podcast. This is your host, Matt, joined as always by Sam, Kevin, and John. How's it going, guys?
Going good.
Good.
Surviving once again.
Surviving again. Sam is living life to the fullest, as we can tell. Sam, how much are you really wanting to work another 18-hour shift? I gotta know.
I feel like I'm bound for at least one more this week. So let's cross our fingers we don't, but we'll have to see.
Sorry to hear that, man. That's just hell on earth. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Speaking of horrible, why don't we get right into the NBA updates? It's getting a little bit out of hand, just a little bit, just a tiny bit. I think one of the worst things to have happened so far, it's like literally the cherry on top of just the horrible shit that's been going on in his family. But Kat, he has COVID now. Just fucking horrible. Why don't we go over what that does to the Timberwolves, John?
Obviously it's really bad for the Timberwolves because he actually has it, so he will be out for a pretty extended period just because they have to wait until you're fully through it and not contagious anymore versus just being exposed to it where you can miss a few games and you're back. I just feel much worse for him on a personal level. And, I think we all saw the tweet he sent out with the message about this that was partly to let people know what's going on, but partly to his family just to reassure them because they've just been through it. This was probably the worst news of any of the COVID stuff that's been happening just because of how terrible it's been for him especially. So I really hope I'm just here fingers crossed. I hope he's going to be okay. It's I haven't heard that he's really dealing with anything too severe yet. So hopefully he'll be able to get back and just get back in the swing of things. It's been a brutal year for him. So it's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah. Kat's really had the worst part about it all. His family, unfortunately, having some family members pass away. Not to mention going to a different team, but the Wizards are kind of just getting shit on by COVID. Sam, what's been going on there?
Well, nothing good. I mean, even with players, without players, it doesn't really matter what the situation is. I think from our last episode, I think the key message is get Bradley Beal out, get my boy Denny out. Let's call it a day. So I mean, obviously from a COVID standpoint, it's horrible. Just from overall NBA, I think it's showing that the first day we all pass, next day you can't control everyone's bubble because there's no more bubble anymore. Everyone goes home. You don't know who they meet. You don't know how careful everyone really is when they go meet. I know the NBA did release that protocol again. How I think they're going to try to move forward with no interactions after the game as well. Pre-game, you shoot around just a little bit, then you head back to the locker room just to chill and stuff like that. But we're seeing it a lot, right? We've seen the Philly Thunder game canceled. Philly's just been screwed over again. And it's just not looking good for the NBA. And I know there's no chance for them to stop unless it's something horrendous when you lose 15 teams. So I'm kind of glad that they're moving forward still, just because I think it's nothing, knock on wood, nothing super drastic yet, just from a overall business standpoint. But obviously super sucks that, keep catching COVID and then, these guys probably can't even go home. So, it just sucks.
Exactly. Speaking of that Philly Thunder game, Kevin, would you look at this as all of the postponed games and whatnot? Is this would you say that this is probably I don't want to say botched season, but there's definitely an asterisk on this season?
I think it's just as much this season as it was last season a little bit. Last season we had a whole couple months long break of just no basketball at all, and then it was back into the bubble, and so it was a lot different then. But I think something is probably going to change if they keep getting these postponements like this, and people keep having to do this contact tracing, and then they find out half of the team has it, in Philly. it's going to be tough to go on with the season as we know it. I think there's got to be some sort of change. I don't think they're going to do a full bubble again, but I think there's got to be something that changes, and that's going to leave an asterisk on the season again, I think.
Absolutely. I would have to agree with you on that one. Why don't we get on to something a little bit less darker? The world exploded in the NBA's in the NBA bubble. James Harden on the Brooklyn Nets. It has happened. The Rockets decided to say, no, we don't actually want Ben Simmons, and decided to get some other players and send Harden to the Nets. This blew my mind. This blew all of our minds. And not to mention the first game that Harden plays with KD, they score like 70 points together, which is insane, absolutely insane. But why don't we kind of go into the Rockets? Why don't we go into the Rockets first? Because they lost a superstar. They lost one of the best players in the NBA. So how this affects their team. First off, they have Cousins and John Wall. So obviously you would probably want Harden more than them, but it's not bad. Cousins came out and he said, I only came to play for John Wall. Not entirely sure how accurate that is. But John, how are you feeling about the Rockets season right now?
I don't know what the problem is. They have the best power forward in the league in Christian Wood. No, obviously this team is worse now. Of course it's worse. Victor Oladipo hasn't suited up for them yet. He will this week, I think. They'll be feisty. They're going to be probably a good team. And they got a ton of draft picks, but you can't, going from James Harden to Victor Oladipo is a massive dip in quality, but what they'll lose in talent, they're going to probably make up for in chemistry, as they've been subtweeting and subposting all week at James Harden. So, I don't know. I like the Rockets. I love Christian Wood. He's having a real breakout year still, so they're still fun to watch, but they're not going to do anything serious this year.
No, I think the biggest thing is that they can kind of just take a deep breath out, like a sigh of relief that it's all over at least.
Yes.
That was just such a big question mark for the team. They had no idea what was going on with James Harden. The management had no clue. He said I want out, but then he said that he was happy in Houston, and then he said that the team is trash. So it's just this huge toss up. But
before just real quickly, still on the Rockets, do we think this is the best deal? It sounded I kept seeing everything on Twitter was they had a deal with Philly just about in place, and it was going to be Ben Simmons and maybe Matisse Thybulle and probably picks, and then they went with this one instead. Do we think this was the best deal that they could have gotten? How do you guys feel about this deal? I'm curious.
I think they could have gotten so much more. I mean, especially the picks. You're giving a superstar to an already superstar team, and then you're asking for picks that are just going to be late round anyway. And then you end up getting Oladipo, which like we said, he's a good player. He's going to help the team, but he's not on the same level as James Harden at all. And I think Ben Simmons at least would have been closer to that gap. And then if you can get Thybulle too, I think that would have helped that offensive part of that team out a lot. And I don't know. I think they could have gotten a lot, and they ended up just being okay, well, this is pretty good. Let's just do this. And I don't know. It's a little strange.
Yeah, Sam.
I think once James Harden made that last press conference, it seemed like it was kind of inevitable. Either it was already in place that the trade was going to happen, or by saying that, you already just killed the locker room. I mean, we saw the presser with Cousins, John Wall, everyone complaining that this guy just doesn't actually care. Sure, he puts up the stats, but they're not winning, right? We see that. They got a couple games in the bag, but it reminds me of the Spurs trade in a way. So the Spurs, looking back now, I wish the Spurs were this aggressive in doing a trade for because it's like I would have got like I wish they dealt like Kawhi to the Celtics. I could have got like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I've been like set for life at that point. Obviously, that didn't happen, but I think it was the best offer because I think Philly did a good call not trading Ben Simmons. I think the team is working. I think there's no reason to break it up yet until it's like a complete failure. And maybe that deal won't come back later. But I mean, I think a Ben Simmons deal will always be like relevant in the next like 5-7 years. Like I think he's just that good enough to still have some sort of all-star caliber trade level. So I think it's good for everyone at the end of the day. I mean, I know that picks are going to be late, but you can stash them, get something else. Victor Oladipo, however, I don't think it's a good move. I think
and speaking of Ben Simmons, I think the biggest issue was that there was a lot of speculation that Ben Simmons did not at all want to go to Houston. I think that kind of played a little bit as far as the process went. Obviously, if you get traded, then you get traded. But with the player power movement, they have an option. They have a choice. And if Ben Simmons doesn't want to be on Houston and he gets traded to Houston, obviously there's going to be a lot of chemistry issues. But going to the Pacers, since we just talked about Oladipo, the Pacers did receive Karis LeVert, who is currently out indefinitely due to a very terrifying mass on his kidney. No idea what that means. They haven't said anything about it, so we have no idea if it's like anything crucial, anything severe, but it is there. So why don't we not talk about that part? Why don't we just talk about Karis LeVert on the Pacers right now? Kevin, how do you feel about this move for Karis to Pacers?
I honestly think it's awesome. I think Karis can pick up where kind of where Oladipo left off when, the Pacers are losing Oladipo, but I think they get LeVert and they get a young star who has something to prove. He kind of has that chip on his shoulder because he was like on the bench in Brooklyn. And so now he's like, okay, now I can get this starting spot and I can be the one to like make the Pacers just a little bit more. I can help the Pacers get past that first round in the playoffs that they always struggle to get past. So I think he's going to really, once he gets back into it, he's going to really show everyone what he can do, I think, and try and prove everyone wrong in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think the biggest thing that's nice for me personally is that Karis LeVert is starting. He's going to be a player on that team. And I think he's proven to the NBA world that he has every right to be a starter. He's been incredible on the Nets. Last year when he had that 50-point game was absolutely insane. Hopefully this mass on his kidney turns out to be nothing horrible and he can get past it and he can just blow up like he's always so far, But let's talk about the biggest thing. I know that the Cavaliers got like Jared Allen and whatnot, and they have a bunch of big guys to figure out what the hell they're going to do with. No idea how that's going to work out, honestly.
It's going to be trades, baby. Maybe your Cavs will finally get Kevin Love. Or not your Cavs, your Celtics.
Yay, the Celtics. I'm so pumped. More defense.
Only like 5 years late.
Great. But the Nets, the biggest component was the Nets. They don't have Karis LeVert. They don't have Jared Allen. They lost a bunch of picks, which, like Kevin said, they're probably going to be all late round picks depending on how well they play. From what we've seen so far, they're going to be playing pretty well. But why don't we look at this team? Look, the biggest question mark, John, is Kyrie right now. He was spotted a video of him maskless at a birthday party, and he got fined a fuck ton of money for it. But do you think that this push for James Harden is more of an Kyrie insurance play? Making sure that if Kyrie, like for whatever reason, is out or doesn't play or anything like crazy like that, they have James Harden at least?
Well, yeah. I mean, so first, like, I think that if you look up like the AP style guide for writing out your sentences, I think you can actually find that Kyrie's face is interchangeable with a question mark. The man is mysterious. I don't understand most of his motivations ever, and he doesn't care to communicate them, frankly. Here's the thing. Yes, James Harden is insurance for Kyrie as much as he's insurance for Kevin Durant. But what they really want is for all of these guys to just play together and decimate every defense that they come up against, which will be the case. I think I see this working. I think that as soon as Harden got there, people were starting to think of okay, let's kick Kyrie out and we'll have the real show. And I'm like, Kyrie Irving's still a very, very good player who's going to make this team better just by being on the team if he's willing to actually show up and play, which is again a big question mark. So I'm excited to see them play together. I really want to see all three of these guys play together. I don't know how you can even begin to try and guard a floor that is going to be so massively spaced out with all these guys. And if they all decide to play active off-ball offense, which is again a big question mark, as is all of the situation, they'll be unstoppable. Yeah. I don't know who will stop, but man.
Yeah, it's this offense is fucking nuts, to say the least. Sam, I saw a Twitter post that basically said if Kyrie plays for the Nets and James Harden is on the Nets, in the championship finals, do the Lakers win in 5 or do the Lakers win in 6? Nets. To me personally, I feel like this is a bash on the Nets. Sure, we haven't seen the full roster play together, so we really don't know how it's going to work. But when we're looking at the finals, if the Nets make the finals, first off, I think they do, personally. How much of a threat do you think this is against the Lakers? How much do you think the Lakers are a little bit nervous right now?
We all saw that one video, the guy with making that video about LeBron. I'm 36. I'm 36. Quit throwing the ball at me. I think it's kind of obvious, right? LeBron got to the finals. There was no Kevin Durant to guard him. So it was a little bit easier for them in that case. But we have to understand that we can't doubt LeBron. I can tell you that. I know he gets to the final and he does lose. We've seen it many times, but we know that he was the best player on every single team except for probably last year. We saw that Anthony Davis was actually taking over in that role. Not fully yet, but I think we saw him as being more something that you can rely on at least. Something that you don't have to play the fourth quarter. You have Anthony Davis take over, play the paint, get 15 points in that quarter. If I'm the Lakers, I would be slightly worried just in terms of the amount of raw power that the Nets have from an offensive standpoint. But I'm still skeptical about this Nets team. I think there's too many moving parts in terms of these all-star talent. We have no idea what Kyrie is. To me, he's a giant hypocrite in his whole standard of what it means to be an NBA player, but different story. I just knowing that he's not saying anything is very concerning because it seems like no one knows what's actually happening. And to know that he's actually just going to a party and not worrying about an actual cause, maybe he was, who knows about that. But if I'm the Lakers, there's slight concern, but I got him on 5 still. This team just seems well-oiled, ready to go. They've been here. That's the thing, so.
Okay. Kevin, let's just say Kyrie, he's out for a few more games, maybe a week. And let's just say that first off, before I ask this, I'm sorry. Do we know when Dinwiddie is supposed to get back?
He's not going to come back. He tore his ACL. Yeah.
Oh, so he's going. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. Kevin, different question. Why in this entire trade, it looks like the Nets won the trade, but I think DeAndre Jordan is the real winner. How are you feeling about DeAndre Jordan right now?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what the Nets were thinking and Jared Allen away, too. I don't know why you'd take DeAndre Jordan over Jared Allen, personally. I think Jared Allen is the better big man. He just got the starting gig in Brooklyn, and then they're like, you know what? Your value just went up a little bit, so we're going to sell you while you're high. Get out of here. And then they're like, we can handle ourselves with DeAndre Jordan. He's 38 or whatever. I don't know. I mean, he's fine. I don't know. I don't get it. But yeah, he clearly won because he shouldn't have this starting center position on this all-star team.
Look,
actually,
go ahead, John.
Well, actually, I just wanted to like point out that DeAndre Jordan is actually an anagram for Anthony Davis Finals MVP. Because that's what's going to happen when they play each other. He's going to absolutely cook them because they just don't. They need to make a move, because DeAndre Jordan is not going to be enough when they're up against Anthony fucking Davis.
Yeah, and I mean, just to add on, I mean, we saw that you guys watched the game, Nets Orlando. That game should not have been close. I'm just saying, when you have two MVP caliber players, that game should not be close. It's Orlando. We can't be joking around here. Come on now.
So I want to talk really quickly about some conspiracy theories that have been running around the Twitter sphere and even some of the big NBA big heads or whatever, big wigs. The first one that I've been seeing lately is Kyrie Irving is purposely like being a fuckboy right now, and hiding himself from the league, hiding himself from the Nets, so that the Nets so that he looks not very valuable in a trade asset because of his concerns and because of all the question marks. So the biggest conspiracy is that Kyrie Irving is doing that on purpose so that he could stay on this team indefinitely. Sam, do you think this has any truth?
I mean, when you kept describing it more, I was like, there's no way. And it kind of makes you think it's that Kyrie's been hopping different wagons as he moves, and he knows Brooklyn is home. That's where he's from. So, I mean, where else would you want to go? You want to retire when you're back home. So, it sucks because now you're guaranteed like the third seat in this team. Like you're not better than Jay Jordan. You're not superstar talent. I'm sorry. Like Kyrie Irving is not superstar talent because he cannot carry a team. You cannot carry that Boston team. Jason Tatum was a clear champ in terms of that. I'm not surprised if that was the reason, because Kyrie wants to be here. Kyrie wants to stay here. And I'm pretty sure he did not want this James Harden trade to happen.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest question mark, because taking a look back at this trade, Kevin, who do you think is the one that kind of needs to take the step back? Because not all of three of these players are going to be the ball dominant player that they always have been, right? Like all three of these players, granted, are known for their ISO play, but clearly all three of them they can't do it, right? There's not enough time in the game for all three of these people to pop off. So who do you think is the one that kind of takes a step back?
I don't know who actually does it, but I was really, really impressed by when Harden, his first game on the Nets, he dropped 14 assists. He was dishing out the ball left and right like he hasn't in a while. He's not normally on the Rockets. He's always kind of been that guy to go up, pull up, take the step back three, and then that's it, then walk away. But it really seemed like he was trying to do a lot more than that on this Nets team. So I think I hope he's kind of coming into that leader role, that actual point guard role of okay, let me dish out the ball to other people. Let me take a step back three when I'm open. Yeah. But let me also do other things besides that sometimes. And I think if he can do that consistently, that's going to be a very, very scary team to handle with him as your leading guy. But I think, to Sam's point, especially, Kyrie is clearly the number 3 guy just in terms of raw skill and talent, I think. But I don't think he's going to want to be that number. I think he's going to want to be number 1 or number 2.
So you think James Harden is going to be taking that step? Don't get me wrong, people. I'm not saying step back as in they need to play worse, but they need to facilitate a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think we saw that a little bit from Harden, so I hope to see more of that.
Okay. Sam, do you agree?
I'm just saying it's easy to get assists when you have the second best player in the NBA. I mean, I just think that's it's easy when you have Kevin Durant. You can get guaranteed 10 assists at that point. It's definitely a big upgrade than PJ Tucker. Shout out to PJ Tucker, who needs to get the fuck out, get to a real team. Maybe it's Brooklyn. Who knows at this point? But I definitely see Kevin's point. I think Harden is either he's putting on a show just to show that, hey, he is for playing team basketball. And I think he realized over this like 8-year span with the Rockets that he actually couldn't do anything. And I think creating this beef with a vet like Chris Paul was actually a mistake, because that was probably the only thing that was getting them close to being an actual competitive team. I think Kevin nailed it right there.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with you. John, are you on the same page?
Are we just gonna like sit here and pretend that James Harden was not a one-time assist leader in this league? Like, are we gonna pretend that like this man is like he averaged 11 assists in the one season he actually played point guard? Like, and I think he averaged also like about 30 points per game that season too. Like, this is something he's more than capable of doing. I don't think that I think that you're gonna see like Kevin Durant and James Harden playing like 1A, 1B, and Kyrie is going to be like the 3. Like, it's, you know, like and it just has to be that way, unfortunately. But you're not gonna like force Kyrie Irving to be just a solely off-ball player. The best thing that he does is isolate, use his circusy dribble moves, and get to the hoop. Like, so it's gonna be kind of the person whose game actually works the best without the ball is Kevin Durant. Just because he doesn't need the ball as badly as they do to get a good shot.
Sure.
I think that, like, I don't know. Kyrie needs to take the step back, but it's going to be like, I think it'll be more nuanced than that. I think we're going to see like a lot of variety in like who they look to. And then we'll get to the playoffs and it's going to be like, okay, Kevin Durant, you're taking all the shots at the end of the game. And then it's Kyrie. And then it's like Joe Harris, and then it's James Harden.
Loki, I love James. I love Joe Harris. I really do.
Joe Harris is great. I'm glad they got to keep him. He's a great. It'll be very useful for their offense that will continue to spread people out to the fucking parking lot. But like I just don't want. I don't want to sit. I know that Harden. It got ugly at the end. And I know that people like to hate on James Harden. I just want to make sure that I am not totally party to this hatred, because I know that he can do these things, and I know that he like is capable of playing a facilitating role. Maybe like kind of a Trae Young style facilitating role at times, but like, you know, he's come on, guys, like he's a top 5 player in the league. Let's show some respect. Like,
all right, but over under how many clubs does he hit this season? I'm going at least 5.
How about like this weekend? Like they gotta keep a very sharp eye on James Harden in Brooklyn. Hopefully the winter will deter him.
I'll go over 5. I'll go over 10. Maybe, who knows? But speaking of James Harden, and then we'll move on. And the biggest thing, speaking of conspiracy, I think the funniest and the most meme about this trade was James Harden on the Rockets and then James Harden on the Nets. And it was just like, was he wearing the fat suit or something? I'm so confused. Like, somebody
black is a very slimming color. I really don't. I saw a great tweet that was like, it showed a picture of Harden in the powder blue Rockets jersey, and then him in the black Nets warm-ups, and someone tweeted like, "Remind me to never wear powder blue again," because he just looks like, I don't know what happened.
Oh my God! Yeah, I do think that James Harden to the Brooklyn Nets, I think it's a very clear, very obvious plus to the team. It's hard for me, Kevin. Do you think that the Nets are for sure like going to the finals, or do you think that there's another team that can sneak in?
I think if those 3 stay healthy and Kyrie, I think Steve Nash and the front office of the Nets is like, yo, Kyrie, we don't give a shit what you do during the regular season. You want to miss games? Okay, just let us know. Let us know where you are at all times. But when playoff time comes, if those 3 are starting every game and those 3 are healthy every game, there's no other team to stop them from getting to the finals. Absolutely none, I don't think.
Okay. In 30 seconds or less, Sam, do you think that there is another team that can stop the Nets in the Eastern Conference?
I have a soft heart still for this Bucks team. I don't know. They're somehow just clicking it again. It really depends on if Giannis can really step it up, and I mean, like it's going to be a big step up to be a real takeover guy, and it might be just a minutes thing at that point. But I think the Bucks still have a shot. I'm very skeptical on this Nets roster.
That's absolutely fair. I totally get that, and Giannis does kind of need to take a step up. John, what do you think?
My actual team, for a similar reason that I think Anthony Davis is going to prove to be a big problem for them if they make the finals. I am a little worried about like the Sixers, a healthy Sixers team, being a really big challenge for this roster because they have no one who can match up with Joel Embiid reliably. Ben Simmons is also like, though we know he's a nothing offensively for them in the playoffs, like he's huge for them defensively, and they have a much better offense around Embiid with more spacing. That's the one that I think could be a big surprise if everyone's healthy going into it.
That's absolutely fair. Yeah, I think the Bucks and the Sixers are the two best teams right now that like remotely have a chance. But I think we're all that it's almost the Nets to just run up and take it.
Hard to pick against that talent, man. It's hard.
It really is. It really is. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to the show. This is Deep 3 Podcast. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at the Deep 3 Pod. We've been posting a lot of fire memes, some new reels, some new TikToks and shit like that. And you can just see our beautiful faces on YouTube. So please like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for listening to the show, and have a good night. Peace.
I'm the best player on the Nets.